I'd also like to acknowledge the praying people that have assisted us as a council, as well as continuously pray for our nation, whether they're traditional or Christian or whatever faith that our praying people are, that wish nothing but the best and the growth for us as a people, as a community, and the growth of our nation. I would also like to say that prior to Nation Talks, on behalf of our council, I did bring into ceremony a bundle of cloth and tobacco into our community sweat. And it was there that we all prayed over the cloth and the tobacco so that we could have a good series of events in the upcoming month, and good discussions, good guidance, and that also asking Creator and our ancestors to have our ears opened, our hearts opened, our minds opened, our spirits opened, and that we remain in good physical health to see each other, hear each other, and love each other the way that our ancestors would want us to do that. I would like to also acknowledge Terry, who is one of our past chiefs, who's really assisted us in our first year of being in the governance table, as well as our other chiefs, leading off with our past chief, Chief Cadmus, and then we have Chief Grady, Chief Pat, Chief Gordy, and Chief Terry, and for their contributions, as well as the council members who have stepped forward that were there in past terms that continue to assist us in what we've needed to learn in our learning curve. Well, we're on month 11 now, and come April 24th, the evening, right here in this hall was where we were elected on April 24th at approximately 8:30 p.m. and on April 25th at 9:30 a.m. Before we sat at that council table, what we did was we had the pipe raised and we prayed together that we were going to do the best for our people all together and to listen. And the reason that we are there was always, always to put our people first and our nation first, walk in the good steps of our ancestors, and until we become good ancestors to those yet unborn. And I'd like to say that, I really believe that it was that prayer that morning, as well as the continuous prayer. Every time that we sit together, we light the smudge and we pray together. We pray together so that we discuss issues that come to our attention that we have to deliberate on and make decisions on with good hearts and minds, respect for each other, true dialogue, and respectful dialogue with each other. Because let me tell you, we are a variety of people around that table, and we all are very strong-minded and strong-willed, and but what we hold together is that unity and purpose. And that unity and purpose is that we are there for the people, that we are there for the advancement of our community and our nation, and to be true to what we heard while we were on the campaign trail, to stay true to what the good in what we were brought up with, in the love of our families, the love of our community, the love of our nation. And I'll tell you, even as late as I think, we had our community pipe on Good Friday morning. And as we sat here in the hall, we talked about the fact that for many of us, this hall holds so many memories. And this hall, we could sit in here and we can almost see the anniversaries, the birthdays, not only the bingos, but all of those really, really good times that we have had. I was really blessed because I actually don't remember a time that this hall didn't exist and where we didn't come together as a community in this hall. And here we are still in 2024. Now I'm saying that, yes, we do need a new hall, and that's on the agenda. But if we could talk, if walls could talk, actually, some of us, maybe Uncle Malcolm and Uncle Terry, don't want the walls to talk. Oh, they're pointing fingers now. But, you know, if these walls could talk, these walls would have the love of and the perseverance and the good food and the fun times and everything that really makes us a community. And so those are the types of things that we think about. Yes, we have challenges. Yes, there's a long ways for us to go, but we have such strength and we have such love for each other, and we have such love for our community and our nation. So as I talk about the, the prayer that started us off, as well as the prayer that continues to hold us together, and the contemplation, is that you as members have truly elected a group of hardworking, passionate individuals who I'm so proud to sit with. When we were going on the election trail, one of the main things that we heard was this: we want our council to be united. We want you to sit together and to make those decisions and to think of us. Even if you have hard times, always be respectful of that table, that governance table. And we have truly stayed true to that, because there have been times, believe me, I think that, you know, a good 60 to 70% of the time, because there's evening programs in the band office, that we are truly the last ones out of the band office. And we start at 9 or 10 in the morning. And most days we go right through lunch. And we only leave the band office at around 6 in the evening, because everything that is brought to our attention, everybody has a say, and we all talk and we come to a conclusion, even if some of us have to say at that day, I gave my opinion, I feel heard, it didn't go my way, but I respect our table and this is where it's at. Now, saying that, most of the decisions, because we do discuss it, sometimes at incredible length, much to the chagrin some members who have to go here, there, and other places, is that we discuss things until we get to that place of common understanding. And if we can't think it to completion that day, then we say we will revisit it, because every issue that's brought to us is that important that we do not leave, so that a person, an individual, or us as a collective leave it unsaid and undone. Now, one of the what we've had to do is do a lot of learning. So in the last 11 months, we have come together as a team. We've learned about each other. We've learned about how each other thinks. We've learned each other's quirks. We've learned about each other's strengths and challenges, and how we can complement each other in voicing what we need to voice for our people. And I'm so proud to be the team leader. I'm so proud to be part of this team, because unless it's a tie, I don't get a vote. So they're all voters, right? All the rest of the council are voters. But as I guide the team, I have to say, every single person, even on those hard decisions, and we have had hard decisions. In fact, we have had such a hard decision that for the moment, one of our council members is not sitting with us. but we wish him well, and we are praying with him and his family, and we are hoping that when he becomes a healthy helper, that he will be back to the table and be able to show the community, the nation, men, our families, what it takes in order to heal and what it takes to move forward. Because we all know that none of us are perfect, and we all have our own learnings and our ways in what we need to learn and grow with. And we are with our council member, even though he can't sit with us at this moment. So I do want to recognize the incredible strength and love that we have for our council member, but also his family and a community all together in what we're doing to move forward. We had to learn what was being used as governance, as the governance table. And what we had heard from the people was they wanted committees back. We wanted committees back. We also heard from the people that we wanted counselors to have their say, that we wanted counselors to work, that we wanted counselors to be responsible for, whether we call them areas of responsibility, but others might be old school and say portfolios, but we don't ever use the P word, ever, but we say the areas of responsibility. And we also heard, that all of that must work together with the staff, and that staff must be respected in what they do, and how we as a governance table and how the staff have that united responsibility to serve the people. We are first and foremost servants of the people. And so all of that learning, as we've met a good 5 to 7 days a week since April 24th or the morning of April 25th, that has been our goal, is to listen, to learn, and to hear what is being said, and to also hear what isn't being said, because that's just as important. And we looked at the governance system and saw how it wasn't working for Cowessess. And we looked at how we can go back. And one of the questions is, as a governance table, we are only a reflection of the health and wellness of the community. We are only a voice of who our community and our nation is. And who are we? Who are we as individuals, and who are we as a collective? Because before we were elected to that table, we were born band members. After we leave that table, we will be band members. So that's what also holds us together, is that it doesn't matter for the moment. Our responsibility is different, but we are all band members and we just have different responsibilities. Now, one of the other areas that we looked at is the whole concept of, we are a little over 4,500 people strong. And the majority of those people are not fortunate enough to live on our home nation, for whatever our home community, for whatever purpose that it is. And choose to live off our nation, or our community, or they choose for whatever, like I said, whatever reason that is. And exactly look to see how that relationship is, and the equity in voice, and the equity in the future of who we are as Cowessess people. And in order to look at that future of who we are as Cowessess people, for when we become the ancestors, we needed to look at who were our ancestors. Where do we come from? How important is that? And so we immediately started talking with our knowledge keepers, community historians. We have a DNA roadmap coordinator, everybody knows Dean. So I don't know if Dean's watching, but I'll have a wave to Dean. We also have Terrence, who, he's our doctor of knowledge in terms of the academics about who Cowessess was even before we were Cowessess. And then, part of us was Marivel, and then back to Cowessess. And what exactly does that mean to who we are as an identity? Are we Cree? Are we Saulteaux? Are we Métis or half-breed? Are we Dakota, Lakota, Nakota? And other nations as well, non-indigenous. We have much to be proud of from that, and we can look at that as a challenge, but we can look at the strength in the diversity of who we are, whether it is through our tribes, through our background, or even what we look at is in terms of faith and religion, customs, and the way that we decide how to live. So in the next few weeks, we looked at what our responsibility was. And, I guess I should be clicking while I'm talking here. About what our responsibility is to our nation. And we saw some immediate gaps, which we tried to address immediately, such as, like I had said, I talked about our history of who we are with our historical knowledge, as well as with the DNA roadmap. And then we also looked at language, culture, spirituality, and what exactly was that prior to contact, and now all the way up to where we are today. The impact of being a mission reserve, the impact on all of us, whether we went to industrial school, day school, residential school, or we go to school, or our children go to school now with Indian control of Indian education, or First Nations control of education. And what that means for K to 12, well, actually prior to K to 12, preschool, Head Start, and what that means in supporting those who decide to take on any sort of trades or post-secondary that there is. So as I was saying, we decided what we are obligated to do is either a spring assembly or a band meeting. That is under what we are obligated to do. And what I think that, we heard from a lot of people, and I think we experienced this ourselves. What we found out from having a band meeting or an assembly is that it's too short of time. It's too short of time to have a true discussion, to have the feedback on how we're doing and where we need to go. And if we think about some of the past, especially the old school band meetings, sometimes there was fights out back, and sometimes there was, whoever shouted the loudest was the one that was heard until the whole meeting was shut down. And then once the meeting was shut down, that meant all voice was shut down. And then we just waited for another season or another year in order to have another band meeting. So when we looked at the governance and traditional governance, and we looked at what is our obligation right now through our acts and our policies for governance, and what is our responsibility in what we're trying to do. And so we embarked on a very ambitious schedule where we are going to have a series of talks that will discuss the series kickoff. So this is me. So you don't have to hear me, believe me, every single time. I'm just leading the discussion, the first session as well as the final session. And then we're going to have our counselors as well as and then have our committee members and our technicians really contribute and lead those discussions. But we have education, we have livelihood, Cowessess Ventures Limited, community safety, Bill C-92, Jordan's Principle, the Mio-Pamatzwan Act, and Eagle Women's Tribunal. We're very excited to announce, we haven't announced it yet formally, but we're very excited to announce that night that we're actually going to have Dr. Cindy Blackstock and Andre Baer that will be here in our community, that will be leading those discussions for us overall. What's also super exciting for us is they're actually coming into our community for a 2-day set of meetings on the on the 17th and 18th, where we will be having a think tank on the future of what C-92 looks like and its impact on the Mio-Pamatzwan Act, the impact on all of the other acts, and how the integration of services looks for the future of Cowessess, both those who live at home and those that don't live at home here. Then we're going to have one evening dedicated to Chief Red Bear's Children Lodge, another evening or another day dedicated to the 1907 land claim and the ag bends and any other potential specific claims, health and well-being, infrastructure and building, lands and resources with our farms and ranches another evening, and then May 2nd about the operational restructuring in order to fit the Cowessess of the future, because we're so excited to be most likely, and we do believe this to be the truth, the last in the line of governance tables that will actually be having our community and our nation benefit from, unfortunately, what was taken for us wrongfully, and that we expect within the next 12 months to have the claim completed and to have the letter from the minister signed off. And then on May 4th, we're having our community feast and giveaway, but this is going to be sponsored by our council table. We are the ones that are giving back the thanks for you as community and our nation in giving us the honor of serving you. And so that feast and giveaway will be sponsored by our council table. And at that time, we'll be talking about moving forward and the role of culture and language within our nation. So it'll be basically 1 year. And then what we do plan after that, we are planning after that is to have another set of sessions after that, and we're calling it Cowessess, which is emerging from the cocoon in the Nahewan language. And it means how we're going to be moving forward. And at that time, we will be presenting our audit, as well as presenting a third-party report card on how we did in our first year of service to you as a nation. So a lot of us heard about Mio-Pamatzwan as Cowessess people from the Mio-Pamatzwan Act, which deals with child welfare. But when we look at Mio-Pamatzwan and what it means, really, it's a way of life. It's a way of life for all of us to aspire to, and it's a way of us to aspire to it individually and collectively, and to think 7 generations behind us, and also to think 7 generations ahead of us. And so how we govern ourselves is surrounding the concept of Mio-Pamatzwan. As opposed to it just being an act, it's a way that we govern ourselves. And so Mio-Pamatzwan means the good life, and we have the inherent right to living a good life from birth or conception right till when we become an ancestor. And if you look at Mio-Pamatzwan in the center, it's about the different seasons of us as humans. And that is birth, infant, toddler, child, youth, teen, young adult, parent, and then elder, knowledge keeper, grandparent. And then surrounding us is that ancestral knowledge that we all carry within us. Our belief is we come from our ancestors. They still live within us. Not only does their blood flow through our veins, but so does their knowledge. And it's up to us to be good stewards of all of this while we are still here. In our philosophy, it's not just us two-leggeds. It's about how we are here to care for the swimmers and the four-leggeds and the ones that fly, as well as the elements that we need in order to exist, the waters, the lands, the air, the sun, and how we care for that as a governance table, and how that's reflected within the programs and services, and how that translates into assisting people live Mio Pamatsawin. So before we get to this, what we wanted to talk about a little bit, and I shared a little bit about, that whole concept of those who are on reserve and those who don't live on our reserve. And the fact is that, once again, we know this, that many of our families and our kids, they live off reserve. Now, from our love for our families, we all have family members who live off reserve. From legislation, from Bill C-31 and other government legislation, as chief and council, we are also responsible for those who live off reserve as well. Now, what that means is very different when it comes to programs and services. And so for us here who live on reserve, programs and services and the monies, the majority, like 99% of the money that we receive from the government is meant for programs and services for those of us who live in the community. And we know that we are either underfunded or unfunded in the areas for that Mio Pamatsawin. And that it is only through own source revenue from our nation that we can even consider having benefits outside of those very strict parameters on eligibility criteria for what is eligible for us to get reimbursed from the government in those programs and services. So I want to make clear that right now, currently, other than items that were thought of way back from our TLE trust, such as funerals, some subsidies that are from, that assist off reserve people with housing, I should say housing, home buyership acquisition, some seniors benefits. Those all come from either our TLE trust or own source revenue. Those are not government monies that are given to us. We do not receive government monies for off reserve for programs and services. Now, why I'm making a point of this is that it's very, very important as we look at the plan for the growth of our First Nation. Because as we grow in population, whether it is those who live on reserve or those who don't live on reserve, we will be having that on reserve, we will be having a population growth. And we know that it's hard right now to live. And we've been told through ceremony, we've also been told just economically, times are going to get tough. And we're already feeling that with, food insecurity, housing, whatever that, training, education. And so for those types of situations, we know that we have to make a plan. And we also know that while we have that inherent right, that Mio Pamatsawin, as well as from the treaty, the portability of treaty rights, that in fact, we do not get funded for much of that. So we ourselves have to put that plan in place in order to maximize and to be good business people, to think, is it smart? Is it strategic? And is it going to benefit our nation? And our nation, of course, are all the people inside of it. So what do we define as Mi'opamatsuan? We have our rights, we have our responsibilities, and who we are as Cowessess. Now, government has done, residential school has done a really good job. Government has done a really good job of telling us how we're different from each other. Family-wise, especially through residency, those who live on reserve and those who don't live on reserve. And, you know, that's colonization. That's what they do. That's what even we do together in order to keep us separated. And once again, going back to what I originally said, that we were elected because we made promises to our membership that we were not going to let any of those old beefs, you know, continue, if you will, want to call them that. And that we were going to look beyond our egos and you know, families and relationships, and think about those yet unborn, and know that within ourselves that we hold that responsibility, because nobody else, especially the government of the day, is going to ever take care of us the way that we need to take care of ourselves and each other. And so we started to really think about that. You know, how do we reflect the uniqueness and the special place that our on-reserve people have? And really, when you think about back to Pierre Elliott Trudeau, may he rest in peace, he said, and we had the white paper, you know, that showed us that, was, you know, we've had legislation all throughout, you know, before even Uncle Malcolm was born, that was meant for us not to succeed. He's going to one day just say, you know, I'm getting pretty sick of those old jokes. But for now, he's allowing me to get a few laughs out of that, so I appreciate that. And, you know, Pierre Elliott Trudeau was the one that said, once we lose our language and we lose our culture and we lose our land, then we are no longer Indian people. And that was a wake-up call for all of us, because he was right. But that was a call to action for all of us on how we had to get beyond what government did and thought about us to what we know our loved ones, how Creator loved us so much that we were born with those inherent rights. And then further, our ancestors loved us so much that they created treaty with the newcomers under that covenant with Creator, and how it is up to us to carry out those treaty rights, responsibilities, and to live every day those Creator's laws for those inherent rights and responsibilities. And when we think about home here, it is home. It's whether or not we have lived here one day or our entire lives, this is home to all of us, because this is the holder of who we are. And how do we show respect and love and support for the people who decide to live here and who make this our home and our hub of who we are as Cowessess, who are the stronghold of who we are as Cowessess? How do we support that identity and that love and that respect from those who do not live at home here, as well as that knowledge of those who live on reserve? What makes people who live on reserve not special because you just live here? It's because your place here says we still exist and we are still alive, and we are having babies and grandchildren and chop-ons. And this is who we are. And so looking at that as the stronghold of who we are as Cowessess, how we are going to strengthen our community through housing, through community buildings, through once again, I'm going to say housing, through that education system, through opportunities for getting into the trades, for support if you decide to leave the community to go get post-secondary education. Just a few days ago, we were in this hall where we saw level ones or pre-level ones, I think, in carpentry. And those individuals have such a strong future, and we need them so much that in 4 years, and we're so excited to announce this, there's opportunity coming, not only with our 1907, but through all of the administration that we are cleaning up and that we have cleaned up, that, we expect in a short few weeks to announce housing availability, new housing availability, renovations availability that we have never seen in many, many years, if not decades. And we are that close. So stay tuned for that good news. But we need the people. We need the people to build the homes. We need the people to be able to come home and to have the red seals, to be the plumbers, to be the carpenters, to be the electricians. We need the people to come home and to be the teachers and the home care aides and the ones that assist our most vulnerable. We need those that are willing to come home here and to be small business owners and to have their dreams come true if they want to be our stronghold and live in the stronghold. And that is their opportunity with our revitalization of language and culture. And while we say that, we are looking at, where does that leave the people that aren't living on the reserve? And where does that leave the people who don't live in our home nation? And, Chief, you just explained that there really is no money for people who live off reserve. How is this different? How, what are we looking at? And that's where the plans are coming into play. And that's where, after year 1, as we look at year 2, 3, and 4, and we are dream building and having dreams realized for individuals as well as us as a collective, that when we are looking at the future of Cowessess and those who reside off reserve, is how do we look at becoming a true nation that is not dependent on government funding, and what they choose is their priority for us, because that has always been, since the time of contact, what they feel is good for us. And so as we look at that, when we look at nationhood, when we look at sovereignty, what we are looking at is creating that economic base, because we cannot do anything in this world that we are living in without an economic base, without having opportunity for people to have lives, to look after their families, to look after their parents in the way that they deserve to be looked after. And so that is what we're doing right now, is ensuring that what we encountered when we were elected on April 24th, and to where we are now, almost 1 year in, concentrating on not only how we're going to develop that plan for the future, but also before that, how do we ensure that the people who deserve member benefits, well, we all deserve member benefits, but how do we get that own source revenue? How do we develop it so large that it is able to assist those who not only live on our First Nation, but live off our First Nation with education, with housing, with language, culture, spiritual opportunities. Our most vulnerable, our seniors, our young kids, those who are working 2-3 jobs just to make the rent in the cities. How do we look beyond the fact that many of our people don't live in Saskatchewan? They live across the nation, and they actually live globally. What does that mean when it comes to C92? What does that mean when it comes to our sovereignty with our nation building and our acts and our constitution? And how do we make sure that we get it right? Now, I think that I've pretty much actually probably went through my entire spiel before we had this, but I thought that it was really important on behalf of our council that we deliver this message in a compact way so that you understand, that we understand as members how our contribution, how our voice really, really matters and equally matters, because we all deserve the love. We all deserve the respect and the kindness. You know, being in this job, nobody said it was going to be easy, but I'll tell you one thing. Due to that colonization and the hurt and the pain that's been there, those of us around the council table, as well as some staff members, have really encountered incredible lateral violence, because that comes from people's pain and it comes from their suffering. And that comes from feelings of what do I do next, and that frustration. It's not right, though. It's not right to treat each other like that. And what we always are looking to do as a council is to understand where people are coming from, but also to be supportive of not only our members, but each other, our staff members, because it's hard jobs that we all have. And we all, once again, deserve that love, that respect. And whether or not people voted for us or did not vote for us, we still are deserving of that. And so, you know, we really try to foster that feeling amongst all of us of how do we move forward together in the most positive, best way, even when we don't agree. So now what we're going to look at, and I think Brandon, Councillor Brandon, is going to be our Vanna White, if you will. Brandon White. or Vanna Pelche. Or, no, I'm just kidding. Or we'll just call him Councillor Groovy. So I'm going to go back. Oh, no, I'm not going to go back. What do we define as Mio Pamatsuan, sorry? How is Cowessess as a collective going to provide for membership to get to that good life? And then secondly, oh, I'm over. Okay. What do you feel are your inherent rights and responsibilities to living a good life? And this we are asking you as our members, and we have note takers, and we are also going to be taking comments online as well.
We'll go with questions first from the people in the community, which you're here now. Does anybody have one? Brandon will walk over to Mike, and I'll go over and check online to see if there's anybody here asking. Anybody want a question there? By the way, we have 18 people in attendance here at the community and 24 online. We got a little over 40 people. So, and we got lots of chicken left too. So I don't know if anybody has a question, or should we move on to the next portion? Online question? Not yet, no? Okay, all right, okay. Okay, anyone with questions, or should we move on to the next slide? Nothing on? Self-determination as an individual right and the nation's inherent right. What about clean water, she says? To feel safe. So there's a question there from Tony says, well, what she says? Self-determination as an individual right and an inherent right. Does anybody know what that means? Do we have individual rights and we have inherent rights? The chief.
So just to answer that, we're actually very serious about our stewardship of our lands and waters as well as the air. And in fact, we are currently challenging some of the proposed actions for our shoreline that is by the dam with the dam restructuring build. And we're going to talk about it a little bit further down the line. But the fact is that we understand that with all of the government, the provincial government's commitment to industry, that there is incredible growth when it comes to potash mines, as well as privatization. And we are looking to do whatever we need to do to protect our waters so that we could still have fish swimming, to have our four-legged animals be able to drink from that water, as well as our flying animals to be able to land on the waters. And we are, when it comes to sovereignty and our bills that we are looking at for our nation, we are looking at our clean water bill as probably number 4 on the priority list, behind the Mio-Pamatsuen Act, our judicial arm of Eagle Women's Tribunal, as well as the Election Act and the Clean Waters Act for Cowessess Nation.
There's a question on community safety. Somebody want to speak about community safety?
Sure. What is it?
To feel safe, community safety is what I'm guessing that is. Your inherent right and responsibilities to bring a good life. And so community safety is related to that. Is that what you're saying?
Okay, so we're actually on April 15th. We're going to do a deep dive into community safety. And I would like I ask for their forgiveness for not announcing our counselors who are with us tonight. I mentioned our one counselor who is not here tonight because he's healing himself for all of us, as well as himself. But also we have Councillor Curtis, who is unable to be here because he had an extreme family emergency in which he actually had to leave our council table this afternoon. So our prayers and well wishes are to Councillor Curtis and his family, because they're going through a very tough time tonight at the hospital. I'd also like to introduce Councillor Brandon Pelche. Stand up, Vanna. I don't know. Okay. Councillor Ira? Sure. Give a wave. Councillor Joshua?
Hello.
Councillor Ellison?
Hello.
Councillor Councillor Terry,
Hello.
and the myth, the man, the legend, Councillor Malcolm.
Greetings. Malcolm here. Nice to see you all here and the ones online too. Hi. Talk to you later.
Thank you, Councillor. And so right now, and it's actually after we're done this, we're going to go into the councillors who are responsible for those different areas. But community safety, we're doing the deep dive in on the 15th.
Okay, so that would be involving with the drug use and
Yes.
police involvement. Okay,
Yes.
that was the question. Being up to revive the language, I think we have one culture program here.
So when we first started, one of the areas that we saw immediately was lacking was the ability for our children, youth, and adults and old people to really engage in language. And through Chief Red Bear Children's Lodge, they did and they do have a culture unit or a culture team. And we looked at the culture team and we added on language revitalizer, and that his name is Bill Cook, and he is working on his PhD on language revitalization. And that is through methodologies utilizing indigenous ways of knowing and the renaissance of our languages, regardless of what tribe that you affiliate yourself with. And we have here tonight, we have Clarice Delorme Meaches, who is also she is our cultural navigator, I think is what your title is, but her job is to work with community as well as the culture unit in order to work on that revitalization. So we have Bill and Clarice, as well as the entire unit over at Chief Red Bear's Children's Lodge, and they work together for us to put together how we can utilize culture and language and spirituality in all of the different programs and services and have opportunity for those both on and off reserve for the revitalization.
Now, I think you're going through, somebody else is asking about education, health, human services, accountability, and transparency. I guess we're moving into that at some point.
Right. So for education, we have tomorrow night, pizza night is going to be education. And then what was the next one? Health?
Human services, accountability, and transparency.
Health is the 22nd. Thank you, Brandon. So health and well-being is the 22nd. Transparency and accountability. We consider this as part of transparency and accountability as we are engaging with a series on the Nation Talks, but also with the operational restructuring, as well as when we present the audit. I think at that time we will be talking and sharing on what practices we discovered that were happening and what we have done in order to get us back on track, the immediate benefits, the benefits that we see in the upcoming years, and what we're doing in order to have control measures and mechanisms so that there's always accountability and transparency, because accountability and transparency is much more than finances. It's the way that we interact with each other. And if we talk about those human services, that all the programs and services that we're talking about for those who live on the strong, like here at home, those are human services. And as far as human services that for people who live off reserve, as we've mentioned, much of the human services that people off reserve require will be delivered by the agencies that receive the government funding. and other funding off reserve in order to provide those services. We do try to provide, especially in Regina, opportunity through evening programming as well as afternoon programming for some human services.
Anybody in the hall that has a question? I was going off the internet. Nobody yet. We have one more here. I guess this is an education question, but it says the right to an education that is reflective of our culture, language and in our way of life, and to provide a safe, nurturing environment, I guess, for our kids to be educated in. All right. Is that tomorrow night you're dealing with that? Or do you want to address it now?
Is that a statement? Because I agree with all of it.
Okay.
So yes, and that's what we're moving towards is the education, the formal education, as well as support for education. When we sit around and, well, not sit around, sounding like, oh, when we sit around, but no, when we're around the governance table, you know, we talk about the one thing that cannot be taken away from you is your education. And right now, we do the best that we can for post-secondary. We also have a very, very limited pool for anything to do with trades, especially for those who live off reserve. But our commitment is when we look at the plan for the 1907 is that the goal is that anyone who wants to achieve that higher education, there will be funding that will be available for that. So whether it's undergraduate studies or graduate studies, that whatever it takes for a person to provide for their families, we want to be able to support individuals to be able to do that both on and off reserve.
Looks like that's it for the online questions, unless there's something in the community, maybe you'd like to move on. Oh, right over here. We have one over here. I'll let Rhonda.
I'm concerned about we have 1907 coming, and further down the road we'll have cows and plows. And my concern is members who have transferred off our nation to other nations because they got the cows and plows. We don't have our own membership act. Has Chief and Council given it any thought or any words to how they're going to handle this if we have people wanting to transfer onto our nation because they have family ties here? We are a big membership. Whatever the payout will be, I don't believe will be much because of we have a huge membership. And a lot of people are, especially off reserve, are looking at the money. They're not looking at the future. You know, for some of us, our nation needs that money to thrive, not the individual payouts. That's what I feel inside, that we need this money for this nation to thrive. But allowing other people to try and transfer on when we do get payments, I think that's something we really need to look at. Whether we're going to ever have our own membership act, but it's something that needs to be looked at and thought about, people wanting to come to Cowessess because we're getting big money. So that's something the leadership needs to really take into consideration.
I agree with her. And I think what she's saying is there's people who are abusing our process because the only discretion you have with membership is the council to allow people in or to let them go. And so you're saying that people are abusing the process to come in and take a payout. That's what you're saying.
So we've definitely been talking about that around the table in terms of a membership code. And the priority is to look exactly at what that means, especially as the 1907 comes in. What we are also cautioning it with is that the membership code has to reflect, and this goes back to our DNA as well, like the work that's being done on our DNA, as well as the fact that, who we are as a history. And, we do have a lot of people that struggle with identity and that don't live on our home nation. And what I see myself as a band member, first and foremost, is that what we're trying to do is not concentrate on an individual payout, because believe me, I've worked in this area for many years where I've seen residential school money come and go. I've seen day school money come and go. I've seen payouts of cows and plows and land surrenders come and go. And I've seen people burn through $200,000 in 3 or 4 days. And they're broke like within a week and have nothing to show for it. I've also seen people that have utilized that, and their families have had that step up and they've done really good things with it. And I've also witnessed death from that money as well. So it's very different circumstances. What we see, I believe, is that caution to those who may not have ties, but also to recognize there's many reasons why people have not, to this point, through identity, decided to where they didn't have choice before in how they identified as a Cowessess person. And really for us, the benefit is not that initial payout where money comes and goes as fast as it goes out of your hand as soon as it comes in. The benefit is going to be that longer term where through proper planning and that principle not being touched is going to be the benefits over and over and over again. And that those people that come in, whatever their reasons are, that they understand what it is like to be from Cowessess, because they do have Cowessess blood running through their blood, and they belong just as much as the person who's lived on Cowessess or been a band member their whole life. And I think that's really important to recognize as well, is that many people through identity have not had the good luck that many of us have had as well.
Dresses it, okay. Anybody else from the community? We have one more. He's talking about when you're inherent rights, he's asking about traditional lifestyles through hunting, fishing, gathering, and education. I guess our youth, trying to promote that.
Is that for on or off reserve? That's off reserve. So what we are, depending on location, we are looking at opportunities. And once again, through those programs and services for own source revenue and being able to bring people home, especially during hunting season, in order to, once again, it has to do with identity and that inherent right and that treaty right and how we give opportunity for people to exercise that right.
One of our on-reserve guys, but he lives in Broadview. Okay, anybody else on the community? Anybody else online? We still have 26 people there. All right, if you're
Okay, and I just have to ask for people to excuse me because I had some tomatoes in my salad and I'm allergic to tomatoes and I'm having a bit of an allergic reaction as I'm standing up here. So I'm probably going to look like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer by the end of it. So the governance overview. As the governance table for good life, responsibilities are nationhood, guiding CFN Tamil Pamatswan through teaching, listening, learning. Our inherent rights, sovereignty, and nationhood are directly linked to our identity. Cowessess First Nation is a Soto Cree band, but also we have other nations as well, or tribes that not only made Treaty 4, but also made treaties with creation, the lands, air, water, animals, and fellow First Nations people, as well as through those treaties, having those good relations with those that live, the settlers around us as well. So we have our nationhood, sovereignty, inherent rights, treaty rights, governance, economic base, and our membership. Using this model, we are embarking on true sovereignty, including our own economic base. This will include review and amendment of our current acts, bylaws, policies, and procedures. And recent Canadian, now I just want to state that we have the inherent right to have that anyway. And we would do that anyway, because that's what we are and who we are, that right to create our own nation. And that is through having That is through having an economic base. That's through having our language, our culture, our spirituality, our governance, our judicial arm, all of that. But in terms of Canada, what is now known as Canada, recent Canadian Supreme Court decisions have upheld our right to create, define, uphold, and enforce our own laws. And so not only do we know this as a people, but now what is now Canada, through their own courts and their top court, they have recognized that our laws are going to reign supreme over their laws.
So if we could make our own laws here on Cowessess First Nation, what's going on with these meth dealers and these coke dealers that are out here on the reserve, and we know they're here? Why aren't we doing anything about it? If we can make our own laws, shouldn't we be able to make laws stating that these meth dealers and coke dealers and whoever are not welcome on Cowessess?
Yes.
Yes,
Now,
what?
yes, Lou. Well, first of all, this is the deep. I will very overly above the weeds. We're going to do the deep dive when we go to community safety. But the easy answer, the simple answer, which is not very simple at all, is the fact that we don't have those laws right now. And also, apart from the laws, we don't have the enforcement ability for those laws. So right now, because we as Cowessess don't have those laws, we are unable to enforce those laws, as well as have that judicial arm to enforce them, to ensure that we have that safe community.
So when are we gonna get those laws?
Number 5, like honestly, I guess this is a good time to announce it. We actually have created a governance unit, and we have just recently hired a governance director, as well as policy people that are going to work together from all of our different areas to work on those laws, and to do it in a very conscious and a very solemn way, where it's not just overnight, and that there is truth and there's the ability to enforce behind them. And in the meantime, and I know this is not fast enough, but we have also, our governance table is dealing with very quick acts and laws right now. And I'm telling you that just to pass them does not mean that it's good for our nation and our people. And so what we're trying to do is put everything in place to ensure that when we do have our own acts and our bylaws, that they are meaningful and they're from the people and for the people, and that we are able to enforce them. But in the short term, we have been, and we are on a go forward basis, working with the other 3 nations that are around us and the chiefs of those nations, because I mean, let's be for real, that when somebody gets banned in one nation, they go set up shop in the next nation, and then they go to Broadview, then they go to Grenfell, then they go to Grayson, and so it's just moving around is really what it is. And so we are looking at what we can do right now with the only ability that we have is working with the other nations and the redcoats as they are. But we are looking at our own policing and judicial system, so that we could have not only our own policing, and our own judicial arm to look at them, but also utilizing from the treaties, the redcoats, to enforce those laws. You're like, geez, you could have said that in a minute, Erica. So this is the governance overview. So right now, Cowessess First Nation consists of 6 key areas, all contributing to Mi'opamatsuwin, the good life. Each key area represents a key treaty right. The governance team, meaning our council, are responsible for governance and oversight of each key area called areas of responsibility. Each area also has a committee which not only acts as the voice for the membership, but also work to guide that area to Meopamatsuwan. So we have building and infrastructure, education, health and well-being, lands and resources, community safety, and livelihood. And in the middle is that Meopamatsuwan. And just so that everybody knows that when we do the deep dives in the rest of these sessions, that the counselors responsible for those areas will be the ones that are leading the discussions, as well as we will be introducing the committee members who will be here in order to listen to the people as well.
Question is, while we're at it, is somebody doing something about the dogs? The res dogs, and there's like community safety is they're running all over, and they're at the school and they're all over the place.
The dog bylaw is very serious. We may not think like we kind of chuckle, but it's not, the ability for it to get serious really fast is really truly there. Other children or from other communities and nations, children as well as very vulnerable people have been mauled and have been harmed by stray dogs and dogs that run in packs. And so we are working with our peacekeepers and in order to ensure that we are addressing the dog issue. But unfortunately, it's not fast enough, and it's not, we're just glad that nobody's been really hurt by that. So the committees, through the direction of Chief and Council, committees are formed through a months-long call-out, screening, and proportionate representation amongst membership selection processes. As committees continue to evolve and develop, we'll continue to see greater participation by membership concerning issues that are important to Cowessess First Nation. Now, what we are expecting for terms of reference is that after this first year, so committees were decided for 1 year, and within that year, it is each committee's responsibility to, within that area that they're a committee of, is to decide amongst themselves what is the best, not only terms of reference, but how to address issues such as dogs, such as some of the education stuff, and to really develop that terms of reference so that when we do a call out for the committees for the next 3 years, that after that, that in our governance, it will be committees will be for the entire 4 years or the term of leadership. And they will be decided shortly after the term begins. So what does positive change in the community look like to you? How do you want to participate in creating positive change in the nation? That is the next question.
Okay. When I think about positive change in the community, and I think about what we have to do, our responsibility and obligation to our community is to keep our community well, to keep our community in good standing, not only financially but in accountability to the members. Us members have accountability too. Us members have obligations too to do what's right for within our community. And we all have to try to live in a good way so it reflects on our children. So our children learn from what we're doing. And if we're messing up and drinking and doing all kind of crazy things, well, our kids are going to think that's okay. So now us older people have to try promote wellness in all areas, spiritual, health, physical, mentally, all wellness. We have to do that as role models. I think of wellness as a community that has policy developed that could focus on issues that the people find hard to live with. And we have to develop our policy, develop our legislation, and we have to do it where we can, all people on the reserve that live here can have to live by it. And there has to be ways. If you don't live by it, then there has to be consequences or talk, community talk. It's hard to look at positive changes in the community because some of us are set in our ways already. And we're used to doing things just certain way, but the young people think different than us older people. So what's acceptable to them is not acceptable to us, us older people. So we have to try get talk and communicate with our young people so we know what how each and everybody deals with certain things, And then I forgot what I was going to say on the rest. So thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Carol. And absolutely, let's give her a round of applause. And, honestly, we know, and once again, being a mission reserve, as well as having that legacy that has been given to us through all of, day school, residential school, industrial school, is that identity piece. And many of us have gone through places in our lives, whether it's through alcohol, drugs, gambling, sex, work, whatever the addiction is. And we do that to numb the pain. We do that to not feel, to get away from those ugly feelings. And because there may not be opportunities, and that's what we're talking about, is being able to have those opportunities. And that's why we also developed the culture and language unit so that those opportunities can be revitalized. But also within that is the revitalization of our youth council and things for our young people, things for our seniors, things for our adults, those opportunities through public buildings, because we're very excited to be able to announce in the next few weeks, we hope, some public buildings that are going to be built that will benefit both our on and off reserve community.
Comments here? Good for first one here. I love the community events and I miss the people. COVID has scared us, and more involvement from the community and leaders. That's a good one. And we can all participate by doing our due diligence and seeing the positive changes and positive outcomes. So that's our involvement as community people. And to involve the youth in meetings and to have a voice in our future. Another comment here. I would like to say thank you to the positive changes so far, i.e. the food sovereignty. That was a good one, and I want to say thank you for that too. Providing our members who are less fortunate.
We're very thankful to hear that positive feedback. And, we stand on the shoulders of all those elected and community leaders that have done amazing things and who have taught us how to do good things and think of the people. So we thank you for saying that, whoever said that online, and for those who've messaged us, who took the time to and continue to take the time to message us to give that positive feedback, because we know that it's our families that sacrifice for us not to be with them. And that gives us a little bit of get up and go for the next day. So thank you very much for that comment.
You got a lot of comments coming online.
Okay.
Regarding like the addictions in our community, we're always focusing on the sellers. Why don't we focus on the users? Why are they using? We had a residential school here, and now they have these residential school dollars. Why did we not build a treatment center or a healing center to help our people? Because a lot of us who went to boarding school, We learned how to parent from the nuns and the priests. We didn't do a good job. I've always lived an alcohol and drug-free life, and yet my kids are addicts. I ask myself, where did I go wrong as a parent? I worked in the community for many years, and I always worked in community wellness. I wanted healing for our families. And the sad part is, I can't heal my own family. They got to learn it from somewhere else. It's true, you know, we get rid of one cellar, we get 2 or 3 more. They go to the next reserve, they bring it in. It's even in our local towns, the cellars. But, you know, I really think we need to start focusing on the users. If people aren't using, we wouldn't have drug sellers. So I think we need to start focusing on the people in the community that are using and their underlying issues, why they're using. And it's totally like different now. Like the younger people, they don't have the morals, the values that us older people carry. I think about this a lot. And sometimes it takes its toll on me mentally, physically, emotionally, because I still have children that are addicts. You know, we're a commodity to the government. We keep the jails full. Now they're starting to fill the old folks' home. We keep them employed because of our First Nations people that are filling these places. How do we give the young people back their voice when they don't know how to use their voice? They're scared to use their voice. How do we encourage them to use their voice? A lot of work ahead of us. And I hope to goodness, like I see some changes, big changes in my lifetime. Because we've lost already too many to addictions. And a lot of them right now that are passing are in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. These are the ages that we think they should know better by that age. However, it's not happening. I'm really nosy. I look at other nations to see what they're doing in their nations for their people. I borrow from them what, in my mind, what I think can help me and help others. So this is a big issue, and I hope to goodness that we can somehow lessen this hurt and this sadness and this grief that we carry. A lot of people are grieving, and you know, they use to numb that pain, that hurt. So I hope that something good will come of this. Thank you.
First, I want to say thank you. Thank you for your bravery and your courage in sharing that. It's definitely on our shoulders. And, you know, for those of us who worked in human services and our own family members, we know that we've lost too many, you know, and in the cities or even, you know, on the reserve here, it's not just drugs and alcohol, it's the depression, it's the lack of opportunity, the suicide completions, it's, you know, not knowing what to do. It's learning from almost when babies are born, when an iPad is put in their hands and they have that instant gratification and learn instant gratification, you know, as they're born with those electronics. And then it goes to instant gratification in different ways. And, you know, there's a lot to consider in that overall holistic, how do we provide the programs and services so that people have that shield, that identity and that shield, so that they're not vulnerable to those types of things. And we do have a long ways to go because we have lost family members, all of us, you know, pre-pandemic, pandemic, and now the way that it is. And it's not going to be a quick fix. And, but we all have to make sure that we're doing the best that we can every day. But thank you, honestly, Ronally, thank you for sharing that.
Just to further comment on the addictions, it's a form of nepotism out here. Aunties, thank you for not loving me as much as you loved your children, because that helped them stay addicted. You know, for me, you didn't. You made me face that stuff, and I thank you for that. It took a brave woman, me, to face all those traumas and all those hurts alone. That's what made me strong. That's what keeps me sober. I don't know how you're going to help your children. I don't. I know how I can help mine. You know, it is a family disease. I wish I got a lot of the support that a lot of these other people are getting out here to get sober. I can't even go to the meetings up here because it doesn't feel right. You know, how do we, one of the other things you asked is, how do we use our voice? Really listen. Hear us out. I've noticed right now that a lot of my generation ain't here, and it's pretty sad because we're up next. You know, Erica, you're the same age as I am. You know, you have yet to come and sit with me and see where I stand. You know, I've been waiting. Facebook you don't message me back. I don't appreciate that. But I'm still trying to be respectful. You know, really, there's a lot of things that we've got to build on and build on together. We've got to learn to communicate properly and hear each other out, even if we disagree. You know, I could have an idea that she doesn't agree with. Josh could have a different idea that I don't agree with. But if we learn to talk and meld together, then we can only get stronger. You know, I waited for my leadership to come and speak with me. You know, I waited patiently and I'm still waiting. What more do I need to do? Go up there and freak out again? But that's my reaction. That was old Stephanie, residential school Stephanie, trauma Stephanie. That's no longer me, but I'm sure that's the first thing people think of. And that's okay. That's not me though. I'm an educated lady and I want to see our nation grow. And if you're going to listen and do things, then let's do them. You know, there's a lot of things that we have allowed as a nation together to get to the points where I don't know if we can even turn back. You know, we've had policies in place. A lot of motions have been made just so that you guys can avoid those policies. I don't understand that. I thought we had a way for things to go, regulations, rules, you know, whatever happened to those? Along the way, a lot of changes have been made because we wanted to make families and help families in what we thought were good ways, but we enabled them. And now we got to do the hard part. And that's stand up and really stand behind each other.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie. I got to plug this in because it's going to run out of juice pretty soon.
Okay. Oh, do we want to take a
What's that?
5-minute break?
Okay.
A 5-minute break?
Yes, we will. What time is it now? 8:05. Can you come back in about 10, 15?
8:15.
8:15? Good enough.
Okay, we're almost finished and I would, so now we are at the Bison Acquisition Project, and I'm so glad I stopped you as you were leaving. So now we've gone past what we've been doing and our thoughts on the governance moving forward. We've heard from some of our members, both online as well as here. And we thank each and every one of you for your feedback, and we're definitely going to be moving forward on everything that we hear, not only tonight, because we're not really doing that deep dive and addressing issues tonight. That will be coming in each of the areas in the evenings that we have. And so, but we wanted to give a bit of update on different areas where they have that they don't quite fit in because they're special and they're unique. And so we have the bison acquisition project, and we've one of the best one of the best comments I ever saw on Facebook was when somebody was asking, well, where are the buffalo? Are they spirit buffalo? I had to chuckle. I had to chuckle at that one. But so if we could, I'm going to ask our Buffalo project team, which is Bubsy and Counselor Josh and Counselor Allison and Counselor Terry, to come up and to talk about where we're at with the Buffalo acquisition project.
Thank you, Gary Pelsay, Buffalo Project Manager. Josh.
Good evening, Councillor Joshua Sagan, part of the Buffalo Project with Councillor Terry and Councillor Ali.
Good evening, Councillor Terry here, Cowessess First Nation resident councillor. I've been involved in agriculture all my life, livestock all my life, specialized in livestock. A few years back, I had 70 buffalo myself, and that's probably why I'm on this team. Reluctantly, I had my share of buffalo. I got my dad set up with buffalo, and he really enjoyed them. I gave him 4 good heifer calves when I was selling out mine, and he raised them up to a herd of about 28, I think, when he sold them. He really loved them, and it was good to have them around. I look forward to bringing buffalo to our First Nation. We're kind of well on our way, getting off to a good start, but there's a bunch of, I guess, a bunch of projects that we have put in place to be ready to make sure we're ready for them. And with Councillor Allison and Josh here, we brought on board Gary Bubsy Pelcher here. He's always had buffalo around his place. He had his own buffalo pasture too, and we're pleased to have him. We'll let him tell you when we're getting them. He's kind of taken over the role of leading this project, I think, because we as councillors, we seem to be pretty busy doing our own thing here. Gary is a big help to us, and I appreciate his help. We will get him here, but I'm leaving that for Gary to tell you the good news about it.
Gary.
I'm not Gary. But, good evening. My name is Councillor Allison Whiteman, and I was appointed to stand with these fellas here and help with the bison acquisition project. And so moving forward, I trust everybody had the opportunity to see and review and read the letter that we posted about a couple weeks ago or a week ago that, outlined the facts of the matter of what held up the acquisition of what we're calling the Yellowstone herd that was gifted to us. And moving forward, like Chief said before, at your council table, we really try to make sure things are done in a strategic way and smart and viable for sustainability. And so right now, with working together, we're kind of in that stage to make sure that the plan is solid to move forward to accept the other gift. You want to elaborate? Okay, so this kind of and when we can, we get together and we talk to great lengths on how we can do it in those ways, this strategy to ensure the healthy and smart project that we can build to enhance food sovereignty. And also if the nation would like us to go for it to be an economic development pursuit. But, you know, we really want to make sure we get input from membership prior to solidifying that plan. So I'll let Bubsy talk.
Thank you. I'd like to thank people for the prayer, Carol for the prayer, I should say, people for the prayer. A little bit nervous, first time, not the counselor, so hey, these guys got a year practice with the mic. When it comes to the Yellowstone herd, everything was pretty much in order there. We were working on both sides of the border here to bring them across and that until we got the government involved, right? The big government, the federal government, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. You watch those guys when you watch border crossing, the smugglers, they're always catching them, right? Now, when it comes to the buffalo, Canada wanted a certain test done. When it comes to TB, the states didn't do that test. So that's what stopped that process. Until the federal government and their counterparts in the states get together and come up with a test that they're both happy with, then the animals can cross. That was the only thing stopping the project. I think there was other things in play because if that opens the door from nation to nation, because that's what it was, the buffalo were coming from nation to nation, it would have opened the door for other things, right? Other commerce from nation to nation. So that's one of the reasons we feel as to why they are holding up the show, because it's nation to nation. But it's not stopped. The process still going, but you know how the government works when it comes to the feds, it'll take who knows how long to iron that out. So with that being on the side, being held up, we still have options when it comes to the buffalo. The ones that are being gifted to Sakame, Cody, and Papikases. There's a couple more out there. That's the same one that's offering us 25 head, 25 heifers. And down the road, he'll give us some bulls. But that's where our project management team comes in. We're trying to get the plan together, get all the ducks in a row, our finances, our funding, and everything identified before we bring the animals home. Preliminary discussions, we're feeling around the powwow time would be great to bring them home. In conjunction with the powwow, a day before, whatever, we still have that to work out. But that's another thing that we'll be coming to membership for. You know, a little bit of input. Another thing, we need membership. Naming the thing. We have to name this, right? Get a business name happening in, you want a business name, whatever you start up, you want a business, but that's another thing we'll be asking membership on is maybe naming contests to put out there. So there is quite a few things coming up when it comes to the buffalo that we'll be asking membership for. And a lot of input because like you say, we heard from people that they want the buffalo. And they want to be able to be gifted the buffalo, whether it's to harvest the animal or do what, and that's where a lot of the cultural comes from. When you harvest the animal, that's when you become one with them, right? And the more we learn, and I thought I learned a lot having buffalo 14 years. I scratched the surface. I knew how to feed them. I knew how to keep them. I knew how to make them, but I didn't know the history. I didn't know our history with them and just how, you know, close we were living with them. You know, if the buffalo weren't here, we wouldn't be here. Nobody would be here. But that's what brought the people here was the bison. And to bring them home back to the First Nation, the way we are, I think it'll help to heal the people too when it comes to it. You know, maybe give them purpose, something to look forward to. But again, glad to be part of the project. Looking forward to, you know, a lot of good times and especially around powwow time, if they do come. And they will be coming sooner or later because this is just one of maybe 3 herds that we can look at to being gifted. We can still go with this one and we can still work on the yellowhead herd too. So it all depends how it pans out when it comes to putting it together. and with members' input as to how it's gonna go. Are we gonna have 100 head, 300 head, or just keep it small? Again, economics and membership. Those are the two things that'll drive. Thank you much.
Hello, this is like what Buzzy was saying. This is more of a food sovereignty, a move agriculture for our community, food sovereignty for our community, as land-based teachings for our kids and for our community as within the Buffalo as they are our matriarch. So yes, we can't wait for them to coming, and they will be coming soon. So thank you, and I think that's everything.
Hey, thanks Gary and Josh and Councillor Allison here for your input and giving a little about feeding out some information to our band membership on the Buffalo. We talk about food sovereignty. That's down the road sometime at the Buffalo. More importantly, right now, it's the cultural aspect, the educational learnings that we are gonna get with the Buffalo. Food sovereignty is gonna come a little bit later. I'll caution everybody not to expect too much right away. When I was in Buffalo, we built our herd up to 70 buffalo, and I'll let everybody know that in order to finish a buffalo, it takes 30 months. So that's 2.5 years from the time the calf is born before they're ready for butcher, not like a beef animal where we butcher them in 14 months. So if we get 25 heifers this year, they'll be bred next year. They won't calve until 2025. So, really, it'll be the fall of 2027 before we start butchering any for food sovereignty. And it'll be minimum to start off with. When you look at 25 buffalo, there'll be, if you split them, ideally, there'll be 13 female buffalo and 12 male buffalo. I'll butcher the male buffalo in 2027. That's not a lot of meat when you look at our membership of close to 5,000, but it's definitely a step forward. It's the direction we want to go in, and we're happy to go that direction for our membership. Thank you.
No, it's really good. And I guess the bottom line answer is yes. Just kidding. So we are moving beyond the spirit buffalo. That is that's the bottom line. Oh, any questions about the project before we move on? Online or off?
It's not a question, however, it's a concern about food sovereignty. Right now, not only in Saskatchewan, but worldwide, we're facing a drought. I think about our farmers, our ranchers. They're going to be selling off their stock because there's not enough water. I even went into reading about the Hatfield Aquifer because I read a nation in Alberta is running out of water. That really made me think about what's in the future for our nation, of being scared of running out of water. Like, water is life. We take it for granted. So like, that's my concern, is where are we going to put a dugout for these bison? What about our 4C farms? Do they have access to water? Water that's going to accommodate the herd. But it's not only them, it's us as people. People will have to start gardening again, maybe getting chickens. But it's getting hard for Mother Earth to provide the water that we all need to survive. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda, for the questions here and statements. Food sovereignty is definitely a big concern in our community, and food sovereignty anything about food actually comes from agriculture. And you're right, there's a shortage of water right now in our, well, across North America, I think, or across Western Canada. But if you deep dive into agriculture, as far as I did, as long as the weather conditions were recorded in our part of Western Canada, every 90 years there's been a drought. 90 to 110 years there's been a drought, but the water always comes back, you know. We're in a part, we manage our land much better now than they did in the 1930s. Learned from history how to manage our land, how to conserve water. So there is concern, but there's not concern that I'm scared of. I'm not fearful of that. We will keep developing our water systems and doing more for food sovereignty, but I don't want to dive too much into that because I'll save that for the time when we are talking about it here. But your concerns will be answered shortly down the road, I think on the 25th.
Thank you, Councillor Terry. Is that good enough for now? And just actually that segues, I think, into our next, the Crooked Lake Control Structure Project, dam project. So we know that as of last January, when it came to a vote, and there was a vote that was taken regarding the control structure, that it needs to be replaced as it's aging, and that the province, who's the water security agency, and the federal government are required to include us as per the flood claim agreement. And the new structure, where they have it is must be located on Cowessess First Nations land. And the water dam project is currently, I wouldn't say held up with legal proceedings, but we're actually, we will be coming to community again, because when we voted on this as membership last year, we were given diagrams that on that whole Sunset Beach, we were told that it was going to be part of ATR as well, addition to reserve, and that we were going to be looking at a cottage industry. And if there was no cottage industry, we were saying no to economic development. And there was all sorts of things that were told to us. And when we came on as the governance team, what we had a meeting with both ISC as well as the Water Security Agency, and even then the diagrams of exactly what Cowessess would hold were very different than what the people voted on. And we began to be concerned about that, but we were very new, and we trusted that what we were being told was us just carrying on what the past council had approved. And then as we found out inadvertently, we found out through one of our council members attending a consultation on the next reserve. And that's when we found out that ISC was actually considering selling the Water Security Agency, which is the province, basically the shoreline. And that's when we realized that, first of all, our people didn't vote on that. We knew that already. And then secondly, that this was a very different project than what was proposed to us as a nation. And there was absolutely no shoreline that we would have except for maybe, I can't remember if it was 5 feet or 10 feet. And that was by where Cowessess would have, like, just on their shoreline where they had their fishing station. And I immediately had some meetings along with FSIN, with senior officials at ISC. And then we had a meeting with the Water Security Agency, and we put forth immediately our convictions from our old people, as well as what we know is truth, which is our treaties. Our inherent responsibility is protecting that marshland and protecting those waters. And especially because we know that there's fracking and everything else that's going on. We know that there is actually a potash mine that was just sold very close to here as well. We also know that further down the line, that there's been issues with the water control structures down that way in regards to standing still water, which was polluting our waters as well as for our fish and everything else, in order to maintain a water level that for the cottage industry, and as opposed to what was good for our environment and the animals. And so we immediately said that we were not going to stand for that, and that we could not move forward until we went back to our people to tell them the new story of exactly what that looks like in terms of our role as stewards of those lands and those waters. And we're in a little, it's not legal proceedings yet. ISC is willing to move to ATR with Cowessess First Nation. And we also still have the opportunity, depending on how the environmental impact assessment comes back. Well, we have the opportunity anyway, but we will be expecting an environmental assessment to come back that will show exactly how long the dam is going to hold out, which already we've been told is going to be about 15 more years. And it's not all of the harsh, the dam is going to fail next year kind of thing. And it's also still the province's responsibility to uphold that dam structure for as long as it possibly can. They cannot stop looking after that dam control structure. And we also are very knowledgeable and fearful of the fact that this government is privatizing much of its crown corporations. And our connection with ISC is loosely based on treaty and our relationship with the crown, but we don't have that relationship with the province. And if the province decides to privatize that area, that if we sell it for the dam structure, we will have absolutely no connection to that property that is being sold to that third party. That would not be government owned. It would be owned by a corporation potentially. And when we look at globally, it's exactly as what you had mentioned. They're calling it blue gold now. And so blue gold is water, because water is a commodity, but for us, water is life. And you know that it could potentially be something like Nestle, what happened in Ontario, where now the entire town, as well as the First Nations, they sold their land and their water shoreline. And Nestle is actually, is that what we're drinking right now? Is that they have no access to that water, and Nestle is taking it almost as fast as a potash corp and fracking in order to sell for profit the water. And so we are definitely taking it very, very seriously about this water dam project, and we expect as soon as we get the full and complete picture to come back. And as well, we know that our other three reserves are supporting Cowessess in our fight for ensuring that we retain ownership. We call it stewardship, but they see it as ownership around the marshlands and as well as those waterways. So it is very close to home to us right now in regards to our water base, and we are going to fight tooth and nail to ensure that it stays here as part of Cowessess. Look at, I don't. Okay. Do you have any questions about this project? Anyone in the crowd? Okay. The First Nations Drinking Water Settlement. This is the last one for tonight. The First Nations Drinking Water Settlement claims were due to be submitted by individuals before March 7th, 2024. Joanne Buckles worked with many Cowessess members on their claims, many of who've already received their claim payout. Now, I'm actually going to ask our executive director, Melissa, who's talking to Gracie right now, to come and give the update for the First Nations drinking water settlement.
Good evening, everybody. So in regards to the First Nations drinking water settlement claim, our claim has been submitted. We've been working with Deloitte. It has gone in. It was before the deadline date, so all of that as well. I know there was some concerns out there prior to the submission because people had phoned and they were saying, no, we don't have anything from you. It was just because we had to have all the names and addresses and birth dates and status numbers and everything for everybody that was submitted. So when we submitted the first time, there was some blanks. So they sent back our submission. So that's why you guys were getting those responses when you were calling about it. But all of that has been done. It's been completed. The whole list was complete, was submitted. So it's in the process of being processed right now. So I'm expecting that everybody on that list should be getting a letter of confirmation that it's been received and also a check, whatever that might be. And then, of course, there is the settlement part that will go to the First Nation as well. As usual, the check's in the mail. You are right, Mel.
So any questions, Terrence? Okay. Okay, any other comments before we go to our final comments about this evening? Yes.
UN Buckles had applied on our behalf. So a lot of people thought that their application was there. In the meantime, it was for the band that she did it. So a lot of people were not aware that they had to privately do it themselves. Either or? Yeah, either. Oh. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Which is all fine, you'll still get it. Oh, okay, because on March the 7th, when they said the deadline, we hurry up and filled up that and sent them, but we didn't know that.
Does the band get the check? Or the people that done it in, well, the ones that did it individually will get their payout?
Individuals will receive their checks. That's why they were so concerned about addresses and stuff like that, right? So individuals will receive their check, but the band, due to the total number of people that we had, will get a separate thing.
500,000 that the nation received a while back? Was that regarding to water claims?
Yeah.
That was perfect time that I told her. No, I just had to remember one meeting, the band received 500,000 and I don't know.
I'm not that fast, come on.
We have Councillor Ira, who's always a little bit shy, but he's our waterman, so so he'll speak on behalf of the water claim.
Okay, I don't know too much about it. I also applied with Joanne and she did call, about a month ago to get more answers to how to get a hold of us, where to send a check to and things like that. So it's still in the process. But all I do know is when we signed on to the water claim, all First Nations that signed on received the $500,000 immediately as soon as they signed on. And then they started the claim process individually after that. So I don't know what the criteria is for that $500,000. I don't know if there's any criteria with it. All I know was that Cowessess, along with many other bands, did receive the $500,000. There was no criteria from what I understand. It was just for signing on to the claim that the band would receive the 500,000.
All right, what was the money spent on?
No, we haven't spent it. It's still in the accounts.
Good enough.
Yeah, it still hasn't been spent, yeah.
Okay, good enough. Anybody else on the water?
There's no but. Brand's this is what we live with. This is him being funny. There is no but. um so that 500,000 was sitting when we came onto council, and what we committed to as a council was that $500,000 was going to be spent towards water. Like, no matter what, it wasn't going to be put in, robbing Peter to pay Paul or anything else. That $500,000, we jokingly called it Ira's money, because we all know that he's dedicated, he's dedicated to clean water in our community. And so we're looking at different types of systems, like the low pressure treatment water system. And that money is identified for our community here on the reserve in order to have some sort of initiative for clean water.
Go ahead, follow up.
If the low pressure system, like for the nation, that's to go to the individual homes.
Yeah,
I think we're too far off. Plus, I want to
No,
keep my
no,
well.
no,
I
you,
want to be involved with because when it goes down, then people are SOL, no water. So I want to keep my well. My well, provides for my home. So I want to keep my own well.
yeah, you will be able to keep your own well as well. Yes, they haven't said decommissioning. The project is to pipe water to all our homes under the low pressure project. We're doing the feasibility study now. So from there, it goes into the design stage. So I'm thinking it's a year or so away yet before we get, an actual design. It was 9. The last report was 9 million. But I mean, the longer we wait, it just keeps going up, right? So we need to do it soon. So that's why I approached the ISC to see if we can get the feasibility study done right away. That's the first step. And then they move on to the design stage.
I went to the conference in Saskatoon for the Child and Welfare 92, and they said at that conference that each band was getting 300,000 to fix up the homes of young families that had small children that were concerned with housing. Did we ever get that money, that 300,000?
We actually, it's part of the long-term child welfare reform. And so we're getting it 300,000, I think, for 4 years. And so we asked for and we received, was it 3 options? Was it 3 options? And for year 1, year 2, year 3, and year 4. And it was renovations only. It was building new homes. It was, come on, council, help me out. It was accommodations and expansion. And for year 1, we put it all towards renovations for children, for families that need the renovations for year 1.
Good enough. Anybody else?
$300 times 4.
Oh, man. Else? Done questions? Anybody else? I'll check online here. I'll see if there's any comments.
A whole lot of thank you.
Okay, a lot of thank yous here. The buffalo are healing. It's a good healing to some. You want up here, there's just keep putting opportunities out there for families to become involved in community events. Don't stop. Good things are starting to happen. Chief Red Bear becoming more involved. Thank you very much. A lot of thank yous all the way through. A lot of thank yous all the way through. Keep up the low pressure line right on. And just thank you for the update.